Ankit Bhuptani. He has from Maharashtra, Mumbai, and he has completed his Bachelor of Commerce from University of Mumbai and Master of Business Administration (MBA) in Corporate Social Responsibility, Social Entrepreneurship from SVKM's Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, and he has done a volunteering at Kashish International Queer Film Festival, and he is a co-organizer at Mumbai Queer Pride, and he is a delegate and speaker and LGBT rights advocate at United Nations Human Rights. He's a freelancer, and he's a delegate and speaker at United Nations Commission on the States of Women. He's a LGBT right activist at Global Human Rights Advocacy, and he's also a champion of Pride 365 certified, powered by Interpride, and he's an advisory board member of Moksha Foundation. Yeah. Yes, sir. We are happy to have you.
Thank you so much for reading out my LinkedIn profile. So at least you've done some good research on it. Okay, thank you so much. No problem. Now, look, my primary expertise are in the two things, friends. Okay, one is on the LGBT rights, as many of you would have heard from my profile, which is linked with diversity, equity, inclusion, essentially talking about LGBT rights within the business space. And second work of me is just 1 second. Just 1 second. I'm getting an important call. Just 1 second. Yeah. So, so first one is on the LGBT rights and looking at LGBT rights in the business sense, looking at LGBT rights from the corporate and sense, looking at LGBT rights from a social perspective, legal perspective, and so on and so forth. Right. So policy is one part of it. Implementation of that policy on ground on a social lens is another part of it, and third would be how do we make larger conversation of the society contribute towards the progress of the LGBT community, right? So that's the whole bunch. It's just one part of my work. The second part of my work is something wherein I work with various governments on making sure that they are more progressive on human rights at the United Nations Human Rights Council. So as you know that there are various resolutions at the UN Human Rights Council which comes in, right? Who are the ones who make these reports? Which are the people who make sure that the respective number of votes which are required for the various resolutions which passes at the UN Human Rights Council are being managed, right? So this work is managed by people like me, okay? We are the civil society part of the UN Human Rights Council or any UN body for that matter. Right, so these are the two major chunk of my work. Now, because we are a very small group of friends here today, and this conversation can help you in terms of your career growth and conversation as well. Feel free to stop me anywhere and ask me a question. Okay, or else you can make a note of your question and I'll be able to answer them at the end of my this interaction. Now let me address the very first part of it. I'll not see, the thing is I'll not repeat what is already available on internet. You can just YouTube my name, and I've already done I think for 3 or 4 TEDx talks already, right? If you hear them, I'm talking about my journey and story and all of that thing already covered there, right? So in that 18 minutes of one of the TEDx talk, you will get everything about my journey and stories. I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to waste that your and my time here on that, right? So what I will do is, instead of talking about my journey and story, which is already available on internet, let me interact and give you something which is not available on internet, right? And that is, we will be talking primarily about diversity, equity, inclusion in a business. Let's start from there, right? How many of you, if you can just raise your hand and say that, have you heard about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion?
Sir.
Okay, only one person, one hand I can see. All right, no problem. So diversity, equity, inclusion, in short, it is called as DEI, is essentially a conversation in which we talk about how do we make our businesses more inclusive for diverse set of people. Now, why do we need to make business diverse? The reason is, if I give one set of problem. Okay, imagine a one set of problem, business problem, to similar set of people. For an example, all of them come from a similar socio-economic background, went to a similar kind of a premium business institute of management. Many of you have done your management studies here, or most of you again have done your engineering, right? So say an engineering problem or a business problem, and all of them come from either similar set of business school or similar set of engineering school, and we are asking you to solve a problem. Now, when you have a same set of input, by obviously you're going to give a similar set of output. So if you want to innovate, the innovate requires the output, innovative output requires innovative different input, right? So that is the very first reason you need to have a diverse set of talent. The second thing is, more and more people, like young folks or like all of you, would like to work for a company where your identity is acknowledged and recognized, right? Imagine, because we are going to spend what, I think 40 to 60 hours in a week at our workspace, correct? You will be working 8 to 9 hours a day, and sometimes even more than that. So if you need to hide yourself, if you need to be something which you are not for such a long period of time, every day, 8 to 9 hours every day, do you think that you would be feel comfortable? Do you think that you would be able to be productive to the company? The answer is obviously no. So how do we make sure that all the employees within the workspace feel completely authentic? They feel completely safe and secure for them to work without any fear of discrimination or judgment. So that is the second reason company need to talk about LGBT rights within the business. The third set of argument is that, look, more and more young people would like to work for a company which not only recognizes their right but celebrates their identity, right? More and more employees, more and more customers would like to buy product for a company where their values are aligned. So for an example, if I have very recent example, right? I was in Delhi for a government meeting this last week. Yeah, last week. I was staying in a Lalit group of hotels. Why? Because Lalit as a company recognizes LGBT rights. So if I want to give my money, why will I give it to ITC hotels? I will give it to Lalit hotels, right? Because it recognizes my identity. It celebrates people from LGBT community. So same way, more and more people are young people who would like to give money to the companies there where their values are aligned. They feel comfortable. They would like to support that kind of company which recognizes whether it's in environment rights, human rights, supply chain compliances, so on and so forth, right? So these are the few reasons by which we convince companies that you need to talk about LGBT rights, and that is what is currently happening. Now, if you are interested in knowing more about diversity, equity, inclusion in the Indian context, I would highly recommend one of the book called Queeristan. Okay, can you see the book? Queeristan. This book is written by a friend of mine named Parmish Shahani. It's a wonderful, little big book, but a wonderful book to understand why businesses need to talk about LGBT inclusion. And if you want to understand diversity, equity, inclusion in a business, this is the finest book in Indian context you can find. Okay, Parmish Shahani is the head of diverse DEI lab of Godrej Group of companies. Before that, he worked for Mahindra and has a amazing talent in terms of the conversation. So do check this out book for more on that. So that is the first part of a diversity, equity, inclusion in a business context. Now let's take up the LGBT rights generally in a social level. Now, in 2018, Supreme Court decriminalized homosexuality in India. Before that, it was considered as a crime to be gay. I was born in a country where I was considered as criminal. Just because you can't, choose your gender identity or orientation, what you are, like you are by your birth, just the way you can't change your skin color, eye color. If you're right-handy, left-handy, at least sometimes people try to change it from lefty to righty, but everything else about your body and mind cannot be changed, right? Your eyes color, your skin tone, and all of that thing cannot be changed. You are what you are. The same way, your gender identity or orientation cannot be changed. what you are is you are. Now, I was born as criminal in this country because I was gay, and I was decriminalized in 2018. However, this struggle did not come any easy. It was an extremely difficult and continuous process. The very first case against IPC 377, which is Indian law, which criminalized homosexuality in India, was filed in 2017 in Delhi High Court. And in 2007, I'm not 70, 2007 in Delhi High Court. In 2009, Delhi High Court gave its judgment, which was a positive judgment, which decriminalized it. Again, it was challenged in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court recriminalized us in 2014, 2013. Again, it was challenged in the Supreme Court, and finally decriminalized in 2018. Now, ever since it decriminalized homosexuality in 2018, you can say tremendous amount of positive change India has seen, right? For an example, Indian Parliament passed an act called as Trans Act, right? Which primarily talks about that all transgender people have a basic fundamental rights which needs to be protected, irrespective of whichever government comes into power. It's an act. It also gives them the grievance provisions in which if you're a trans person, if you feel discriminated, how do you make a complaint about it, right? How do you make sure that your rights are protected under the constitution, under the law of this land? That's what this particular act did, right? And it was done by the Indian Parliament. After that, many state governments have formed various committees to look after trans rights in particular. What we are lacking in India, unfortunately, is that our conversation on larger LGBT rights movement is just primarily so much selectively focused on trans rights. Now, trans rights are important. It is good that we are doing good work in that front, right? But it needs to go beyond it. What about the community? There are gays, lesbians, bisexuals, intersex, then queer people, right? What about all the the umbrella of the rainbow? What about their rights? Unfortunately, not much has been done. The only exception is there has been a very recent case in Supreme Court on recognizing marriage equality, wherein a two men or a two women can get married to each other. We did not succeed in the case, right? We failed the case in the Supreme Court, but Supreme Court asked government of India to look into it. Why? Because what Supreme Court told us that look, making of the law is not our work. It is the jurisdiction of the parliament. It is the politicians who need to make the law. We can only interpret the law. What you are asking us to is make completely change the law, right? Because most of our marriage law, whether it is a Hindu Marriage Act, Muslim Marriage Act, then a Christian Marriage Act, and Special Marriage Act, right? All of this primarily talks about a marriage between a man and a woman. The only exception is the Hindu Marriage Act. But again, over there, only in the starting pages, it talks about spouses. But when it comes to application of the law, I don't see any lawyer here. But when it comes to application of the law, again, it talks about husband and wife, masculine and feminine, right? So it's very, very gender centric. All our civil codes are gender centric. So what court told us that what you are asking us is too much of ask for us to interpret existing law, because we need to change almost everything in this. So instead of that, you should go to the parliament and look into it and ask parliament to do it. It is their work to do, right? So now we are getting back to where we were. And fortunately, the central government has formed a committee to look after LGBT rights and have a consultation with the community. That what do you want? How do we make that possible? So I was there in G20 when India was hosting a G20 conference. So I was there for the ministerial meeting of G20 on human rights, which happened at Nalanda, a beautiful ancient city near Bihar. That's where this conference was held. And there I made this statement. It's a very interesting one when I said that, look, if certain set of people in a society think that marriage is their copyright, whether it's religious or cultural people. There are people who would say, no, marriage is only between men and a woman. How can two men can get married? How can two women can get married, right? Well, I said, okay, that looks like, if they think that that is the custom, like their copyright, being a religious authority or being cultural authority, we bow down to them. We just want a civil partnership. It doesn't matter what you call it. You call it a marriage, you call it civil partnership, or you could call it Timbuktu. Essentially, what we are asking is the bouquet of rights which comes with the institution called as marriage. I'll repeat this sentence. What we are essentially asking is the bouquets of rights which comes with the institution called as marriage. What are the rights I'm talking about? For an example, once you get married, if you get married to an opposite gender, you can just, how comfortable you can add your name to their ration card, how comfortably you can open a joint bank account as a partner, how comfortably you can have a housing loan together, how comfortably you can pass on your property to each other without making a will, right? If one of the partner passes away, unfortunately, without making a will, their property by default will go to their partner, correct? All of these rights, or for an example, if one of the person is hospitalized unconscious, and it has reached to a time wherein somebody need to pull off the plug, when a doctor says if there is nothing we can't do, that person is just living on a ventilator, and that person can't be recovered, right? Unfortunately, sometimes family members need to take those difficult decisions to pull off the plug. Who will take the decision, right? So these are the rights which comes with the institution called as marriage. Who will write over dead body of your partner, right? All of this comes with the institution called as marriage, which in a straight marriage, many times people just take it for granted, right? We are asking for all this set of small rights which comes with the institution called as marriage. You call it marriage, you call it civil partnership, you call it anything under the sky, we don't matter. It doesn't matter, right? So that is what we are talking about. And when I met the cabinet secretary of Ministry of Social Justice, there were representatives from the Home Ministry, Parliamentary Affairs Ministry, Legislative Affairs Ministry, Law Ministry. That is what I essentially talked about, that you need to give us this bouquets of rights. You call it marriage, you call it whatever, it doesn't matter. So now that is something going on. We don't know where will it lead, but at least government is listening to us, they are hearing us, and we are look forward to what comes out of it. So essentially, I talked about the business aspect, then I talked about the legal aspect, then I talked about the current status of LGBT rights in India. And now we can talk about how do we make this translate on ground, right? एक चीज होता है कि you make a law, you make a policy. That doesn't mean that it will lead to a transformative changes on society on ground, right? That is a completely different conversation altogether. And for that to happen, we need to reach out to people directly. We need to reach out to people in the language they understand. Until and unless we don't reach out to society and have an honest and open conversation on it, within events like these and so on and so forth, policy will just be in the paper. Law will be just in the law books. It will not have any real impact. And that is where we require so many social gatherings and things like events like Pride Parades. How many of you have attended Pride Parade? If you can raise your hand. Have you ever attended a queer Pride Parade in your city? Anyone? Okay. So nobody has attended a Pride Parade in their life. No problem. Okay. So if a Pride happens in your city, I will highly encourage you to go and attend the Pride. Many times people ask me this question, Ankit, why do we need a Pride Parade? Right? This may question even come to your mind as well. I mean, straight people don't have a Pride Parade on the street. So why do you need to Pride Parade as an LGBT community member? So the answer for that question is very simple, friends. Pride is not only about the people who are attending, but pride is also for the so many people who are watching and looking at the pride from a distance. There are kids at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, too afraid to come out. They don't have courage to come out in the pride and accept their identity. They don't have supporting parents. They may not have supporting family. They may not have supporting workspace. Too afraid. And they're living a fake, dual masked life. For all those people, a pride gives out a message that you are not alone. Almost 90% of LGBT members when they discover themselves different for the very first time, feel they are all alone in the world. They feel like I'm the only one in the whole world as kid, who is different, because all my classmates in the school are talking about other things wherein I'm not able to relate with it. For all of them to this pride gives out a message that you are not alone in the world. There are people out there who are just like you. There are people out there who are there to support you and accept you. Not only that, to celebrate you. For that reason, we require pride, right? So pride is also is a protest for sure, but it's also celebration of our identity, who we are, right? So, I think I'll end here, and we can make it more interactive and take some questions if you have. I know that I did not give a formal conversation. I could have done that, but I thought because it's a small group, I can touch upon many aspects of the community and movement in India and give you a quick snapshot of it. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Good evening.
Hi.
Continue.
Good evening, sir. So, what do you think that everyone's first step towards supporting a person from an LGBTQ community should be?
The very first step for that would be to acknowledge that I do not know everything, right? I need to first unlearn to learn something new. Second step would be to be that person, be that space in which person from a queer community feel comfortable to come out to, right? You can say, look, I don't understand everything, but I'm here for you. What really matters for me is you, the person in front of me. Whatever you are, however you are, I'm here to support you. I'm here on this journey with you. If you start from there, it automatically lead towards being a better ally, being a better supportive person. But it really starts from you acknowledging that I do not know everything, but I'm here to learn. But irrespective of that, you can feel safe with me. You can feel comfortable with me. And I am that space in which you feel secure and you can come out. Second thing is, don't force anyone to come out, right? I mean, sometimes we as a friends just know about our friends, right? So even if you know about your friend, don't force them to come. You just be there, accepting, right? Just the way you are, and let them take that journey of coming out to you.
Sir, what are the steps and tips that we have to follow to become a speaker at United Nations?
What are the steps
and tips that we have to follow to become a speaker at United Nations?
Okay, interesting. I was just asked, waiting for that question to come, and deliberately kept it out in my presentation. Thinking, did somebody has noticed that or not, right? Okay. So look, friends, UN has a 3 set of people. Okay. The very first set of people are the diplomats representing country. So you become foreign service person. Then you become a representative of India. So government of India sends you there, right? So that's like all IAS, IPS officers and all of that thing, civil servant exams you give and all that. So that are the first set of people. Second set of people are the UN employee themselves, right? UN has good number of different positions in different sectors, and you can be a full-time employee, you can be a part-time employee. There are many work from home opportunities as well with the UN. If you want to know more about it, go to UN career page, right? And you can check out what kind of positions they have and what kind of education is required to be an UN employee. And then you can make your career plan accordingly, right? But again, then you need to be ready to move to UN headquarters. Most of them would require you to be situated in New York or in Geneva or Brussels, right? Or Hague, for that matter, right? So depending on which UN body you are aspiring to, you can go to go to the UN career page, and there are thousands of job opportunities every month, and you can have a look at it. That is the second set of people. First set of people are the civil servant of different countries. Second set of people are UN employee themselves, and the third set, and that's where your question comes in, is the civil society part. Now, when I say civil society, essentially people working for different NGOs who are like NGOs are member of the UN, right? So within the human rights conversation where I had been to, there are different NGOs working within the human rights, and they all send their representatives at the UN Human Rights Council. Every year, a Human Rights Council happens in Geneva, Switzerland. That's where the UN Human Rights Council is headquartered. And they do a lot of conversation with the different state actors. State has been the country actors. They do lobbying there. By lobbying, it means that convincing countries to vote in a certain way, which is more progressive and things like that. They would be organizing various events in the sides of the main Human Rights Council meetings, right? They would be inviting various speakers to give a talk on things like that. So how to get into the easiest way is the civil society part, the NGO part, right? So you can go and check which are the NGOs registered with the UN and which are the areas in which you would be interested in, right? So you can choose whether you are interested in women's rights, environmental rights, labor rights, refugee rights, queer rights, right? Cultural heritage, all of this conversation, and check out which are the NGOs working in that in that sector are linked with the UN, they're registered with the UN, right? And then you can start volunteering with them and work with them and make your way through it. Another way is, if you already have an NGO or your friends have an NGO, register yourself if you have all the compliance completed and all of that thing. Only thing is it takes 4 years of waiting time for your any new NGO to be onboarded to the UN, right? So from the time you apply till the time you get the approval, it takes 4 years of time, right? But then it's very easy thing to do. UN hardly rejects any NGOs if your documents and finances, everything's clear. There is no gapla and jol in those documents and all of finances and all that. Then it will be easy. Then what happens is, then you get 7 to 8 passes to attend Human Rights Council every year. You will get access to the UN building itself, right? It is one thing to just go to Geneva on a tourist visa and click a picture outside the building. And there is another thing to get into the building and do the real work, right? So if you want to be that person, then this is the easiest way out. The second difficult way is go to the UN website, UN careers, and look at the kind of jobs they have and how you can get that job. What kind of education they require. Again, over there, you need to have some kind of civil social work experience for sure. And the most difficult one is the civil servant way. But again, once you become a civil servant, it is not under your control where you would be posted. It is the government who will send you. Okay, now you go to UN, you go to another country, you have to go to another country. So these are the 3 ways by which you to get into the UN. Nobody tells you this on YouTube video or search and all of that. Okay, that's why you need people with experience to come and interact. And I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other question?
Sir, I have a situation like I have a friend who will only about himself, and if we're doing a project like a team, he will only do by himself, and for the submission, he will take the rest of the team members by completing it, by not coordinating with the team. Like how to handle them?
By honest and open conversation. Talk to that friend. What really matters in any relation, whether it's friendship or otherwise, is the open and honest conversation. Instead of assuming some things about them, it's better to talk to them. So reach out to them and say, hey buddy, I'm observing this. Is there, and again, when you talk to them, use the language of reaching out and support. Is there anything I can do for you? Right? Let me know, I'm here for you. Right? Again, second thing is don't insist. Otherwise, people may just back off that, why are you trying to help me? I don't need your help. Right? So, hey, listen, I'm hearing this, I'm observing this, I care for you. I'm concerned about you. So let me know, is there anything I can do for you? Or you can do that much? And let that person speak. If that person still doesn't come out and asking for a help, there's nothing much you can do. So essentially, you can only help the person who is ready to accept your help. No matter how much you try to do, if that person is not ready to accept your help, you can't do much, right? So be that space. If that person is not ready tomorrow or today, he may be open to seeking help tomorrow. And that is what all you can do.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah.
I have a question. Like, how important are the pronouns and what was the history behind it?
Look, I'm gonna give you both the side of answer, right? There are no absolute answers to it. There would be LGBT rights activists who tell you that gender pronouns are absolutely must, right? But at the same time, they will also create as if you have done some great mistake if you misgender them or don't add your gender pronoun next to your name. Oh my God, how dare you? I'm gonna cancel you out, right? I personally feel the real truth is somewhere in between, right? There are people who will not acknowledge gender pronouns at all, which is also extreme. And there are people who will say that gender pronouns, without the gender pronouns, no conversation can start, which is also true extreme. Look, it is a journey we all are embarked on. And that when you say journey, it is not an event like this. Society takes time for evolve over a period of time. So while I'll acknowledge that gender pronouns are extremely important and must be recognized and acknowledged, we should try our level best to add them. Why do we need to add them? Because look, if you add your preferred gender pronouns next to your name, that means I, as a queer person, feel that you understand what LGBT identity is. You understand what it means to be queer, and I can reach out to you. You are a safe space in which I will feel protected and comfortable to talk to, right? And that's why you have added your gender pronouns. So I feel comfortable, right? So that's why you need to add your gender pronouns. But at the same time, if some LGBT community members will just say that, we'll just cancel you out. We'll just say that you are so regressive and all of those things they will name call you, which is also a little too extreme, I personally feel. Right? Just the way adding gender pronouns is your personal choice, not adding gender pronouns is also personal choice. It's a personal freedom, right? Nobody can dictate anyone, and nobody should be feeling ashamed by doing something, right? What is our core identity? What does LGBT communities let people be who they are? Then how can same LGBT community make a rule for whole world to follow? And if they don't follow, then you are regressive. You are not civilized. We need to come and teach you something. So I don't believe in both the extreme. I'm a person who is a middle path. I've said, okay, adding gender pronouns is nice. It's an additional thing. Essentially, by adding gender pronouns doesn't give you a certificate that you're best an ally, right? At the same time, by not adding gender pronouns, that doesn't mean you're a transphobe or homophobe. You could be a wonderful person. You may accept everybody, but it's just your choice, and I respect that. But again, this is my very personal opinion. I'm sure most of the LGBT community may not agree with me.
Thank you, sir. I have always been confused about this because when we are having a discussion among friends, there's always these two poles. And
Correct. Again, essentially, why are we saying that gender is not binary? It is not he, him, and she, her. And there would be a trans person, there could be intersex person who may not feel comfortable with any of this gender. So it started essentially by making people who do not fall under the gender binary feel comfortable, right? It started from there. Now their conversation has been completely out of the box now. It is just the cisgender queer people started, oh my God, my gender pronouns is he or she. Now you must call me he or she. Otherwise, I'm going to cancel you out. So that cancel culture is also too toxic. All right. If we have completed all the questions.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful session and valuable time for giving.
My pleasure. It was really a nice, cozy, interactive session instead of a big presentation and so I'm glad this very few people joined. So I was able to be more honest and open and give you quite more insight. Otherwise, I would have just repeated my story, which is there on internet and all of that thing. You can still check that out, but it will be just a waste of both of our time, wherein you can just watch it on YouTube as per your comfort.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. If any other questions are there, you feel uncomfortable asking here in public, feel free to reach out to me on social media. My everywhere my IDs is same, Citizen Ankit, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. CITIZEN Citizen, ANKIT Ankit. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to address any of the questions there.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir.